So I'm a realtor. You guys know that, I think. And I had an open house yesterday in Bethel. And a young couple came through, and the woman was wearing a button. And all I saw at the beginning was a black and purple button, and I saw the word March. So I said, oh, okay. She had been to the march in New York City on Saturday, the Women's March in New York City. And I believe, from her account, and you could fact check me on this, there were about 400,000 people there, perhaps a little bit more, but about 400,000 people. Marches all over America that had great turnouts, and not necessarily to be critical of the president-elect at the time, but the president now, whom we fondly refer to as President Moloch, and you can look that up in the Old Testament to gauge what that is. But more to accentuate the positivity and the positive things that we're doing as the people that are standing up against the administration that's in place now. Wait. What are you, Raghib, what are you doing here? Didn't you lose?
I did, but I'm still standing. And after the election, I realized that we lost by such a small margin, and we had such a great amount of young kids that were looking up to me to be a leader in the community, and I decided to stay. And I'm here, and I'm digging in, and I'm not leaving. So
nice.
Yes, just like those women, I want to make sure that I still have a voice, and it's going to be loud.
So you ran a spirited campaign.
Did.
For the 2nd Assembly District in Connecticut, which encompasses, you tell us about what you ran for and some of your experiences along the way.
Sure. So I ran for the 2nd Assembly District, which includes Bethel, Reading, Danbury, and Newtown. And I lost by such a short amount of votes. It was only a few 200 votes short, so it stings. But I think it sends a message that we did get a good message out there, that this was a Republican seat, a Republican year, and it was able to be that close. I think people who said that my name would hurt me, that the color of my skin would hurt me, my sexual orientation would hurt me, I think that's to Bethel and the rest of the towns.
Strike 1, strike 2, and strike 3,
right,
huh?
Yeah.
You're out.
Yes.
But you weren't out. Go
ahead.
wasn't,
no. So, and I did go up against a guy who had 26 years of name recognition, and we had that to fight against, and I think all of that speaks to the campaign we ran, and I'm proud of it. And 200 votes short. So there was places where it was harder, and I think, as I move on, I still think back, what could I have done better? Where could I have pushed harder? And it is all door-to-door action. And while I was at the doors, I think people did want change, whether it was Republican or Democrat. They wanted someone different, and I think I did speak to a certain group of people, but maybe I missed a few there. But I'm proud of what I did, and I think most people, or a few of them in town, would have liked me to leave Bethel and go back to Washington D.C. where I used to work. And while I did have a few offers, I decided to stay. And I think on Wednesday after the election, and of course I was in mourning. Not only did I lose my race, but we lost the presidential race, and we were all shocked. And I probably took an hour, and I just said, you know what? Next, what's next? So what do we do next? How do we organize? What do we do? Where do we go from here? And I stayed in my community, and I got involved, and I'm getting involved in the town committee now, trying to take more leadership roles. And I kind of remembered on election day, I was at the municipal center in Bethel, and I was just outside waving to the voters and greeting people, and a whole bunch of high school kids kept coming up to me, and mothers would say, "Oh my God, my son's your biggest fan." And it's the weirdest thing, because I'm like, these kids don't really know me, they just see my face, my freckled face plastered around town. And I think it would just meant something, that someone young was stepping up and they were getting involved and they were doing something. And just to be an idol in that sense was, I think it transcended to me how much this really meant, and how much it does mean that, although I'm 25, what I've accomplished, and that's nothing to be, just because I lost doesn't mean I'm out. So, I've been going to schools, Worcester School in Danbury, I visited them and spoke to a group of sophomores about my campaign, and just never giving up, and the questions they all had was, were you discriminated against in your political career? And it was all very race-based, and which was interesting, but I said, there's always going to be those people, and there's nothing you can do but, ignore them, work hard, push hard, and make maybe some of those ignorant people realize that you're not so different from them, and that although on the campaign trail most people would ask me, where am I from? Grew up in Bethel, I'm from Bethel, but I understand, that the name is a bit odd, and in a post 9/11 world it's not so easy. But yeah, we did a good job, and I've been getting more involved in Connecticut and making sure that people still can look up to me and I can help lead.
Well, there's something to be said for Americans overlooking a name, as they did with yours for the most part. We had a president named Barack Hussein Obama.
Yep.
And who would have ever thought that a man whose middle name, Hussein, was the last name of Saddam Hussein,
yep,
and whose last name, Obama, sounded like Osama.
Yes.
So, and America looked past that and had an opportunity to be race baited in by not necessarily the candidates he ran against, but people that supported the candidates and were mouthpieces for those candidates, tried to race bait him in. And the first question was, is he black enough? Because he's biracial.
Yeah.
And the second question was, and that didn't work, it was, is he white enough? So they tried it from all angles. They brought in Jeremiah Wright and amplified up his speech in church. And every time you saw Jeremiah Wright on the TV, he was a little darker and a little purpler and a little bit louder every single time his speech got played. So forces were brought to bear, and yet America ended up with President Barack Hussein Obama. And Bethel came very, very close. Bethel, Reading, and the southern portion of Danbury came very close to having state assembly representative Raghib Allie-Brennan. So it's a good country.
Yeah.
You can't overlook the bad stuff, but you can't not be amazed by the good stuff. So these teenagers that you've spoken to outside of Bethel Town Hall and young people over at Worcester School, what should they be doing looking forward to 2018?
Well, I think these kids need to start looking as to, I know people are saying, if you don't like how things are, run for office. If you don't like something, grab a clipboard, go knock on doors, make change. But it's broad, it's very broad. How do you get involved in the political process? How do you run for office at 25? The reason I got involved in politics was issue-based, and I think that's how it always should be. It shouldn't just be because I want change, I'm going to run for office. What do you really care about? Are you passionate about the issues? And my whole story was based on Hurricane Katrina. I studied natural disaster policy in college, and I wanted to get more involved to make sure that minority communities weren't getting left behind. And I said I want to go back home after college and get involved in Bethel and see what I can do to make sure I'm protecting my community and speaking up for it. And then I worked for Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty. I moved down to DC and worked for Congressman Cedric Richmond from New Orleans, and then Congresswoman Alma Adams from Charlotte, where I was an energy and environment advisor. But for these kids, I think you have to figure out, what do you care about? Is it women's rights? What do you want to speak about? LGBT rights? I think you pick something that you focus on, and you go from there. What are the groups in the state that are talking to these issues? Is there someone that you like? Congresswoman Esty, do you want to volunteer for her? Is there a state representative that you like? Or even you have to start attending meetings. Some of them are a bit of a bore, but you have to go and show up, and you have to make people realize, all right, this person actually cares. They've been showing up, they want to get involved, and I think you kind of take it from there. So I know going to marches is great, it's a great step, and I think it sends a loud message to America and to our president that, we're not going to be silenced, and if we don't agree with you, we're going to make sure you know it. So,
if anybody has ever been to a town meeting, Bethel, Brookfield, Danbury, any of the towns around, Reading, knows those meetings are dry as toast. But they're informative. They're informative. You come out of each meeting knowing a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more about the folks that are in charge in the town that you're going to the meeting in. You know a little bit more about local issues, which of course everything essentially is local. You start local, and you build a base locally, and you work up from there. But continue.
Yes, and I think even I've still been attending, the Democratic Town Committee meetings in Bethel, Reading, Danbury, and Newtown, and I think we've seen after the election an influx of new people that are just, general public, just sitting there paying attention, and I think we're seeing that DTCs, Democratic Town Committees, are starting to kind of pivot about how they run their meetings now, because, business as usual, what's the treasurer's report, the secretary's report, I mean, that's how it goes.
The dry stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the dry stuff, but I think they realize there's people in the room that want to be told, what are we doing to do more outreach? How are we getting involved in our community? I mean, it's not generally, we're going to march tomorrow on the White House and with this agenda. It's, you get involved in Bethel, maybe we help out and do a service project, or, making sure that we're organizing, most importantly, for the municipal election year coming up, and getting those volunteer base there and making sure that they know we need to door knock, we need to make phone calls. This is all part of the process about, how we organize. And I think it's exciting, and I think for me being a past candidate, that I wish this was happening for 2016, because I was out there driving myself, door knocking, and someone else could have been in the car, and people are just, I'm busy. I'm like, but we have a real shot. And I know, like, right after the election, the Working Families Party called me and said, we didn't realize it was going to be that close. Leadership said, oh my gosh, we wish we knew it was going to be that close, because it's a Republican seat and people just see the numbers and they play it by that. But you can't work off of that, and that's why it's up to the candidate to sometimes get it done. But if you have some backup help who really care and want to help you.
I'll speak to that. It's very hard to get folks motivated. In 2008, part of my problem in getting people motivated was you had a guy running for president that was black, and everybody was focused on that. It sucked a lot of the air out of the room. A lot of the oxygen got sucked out of the room by the presidential campaign, and it was hard to get people excited about down ballot tickets like state representative, which I ran for in Brookfield and Bethel, Brookfield in the northern half of Bethel. And you just know that, as you say, if you could find a way, or if the people that like you could find a way to get out and do just a little bit more, make a couple more phone calls, get in a couple of more conversations, not just with people that you agree with.
Yeah.
Not just people that are no, you don't need an echo chamber. What you need is to reach out to everyone around you, and people that are a little bit in disagreement with you, you have an opportunity to win them over. Folks that are 180 degrees difference, you have a chance to have a good, honest, and decent conversation, and maybe tick them just a little bit. Maybe just move them a little bit. Because that's how things happen. People don't have epiphanies. They don't, overnight, they don't say, oh my God, I was wrong all along, I realized, and no. People make very gradual changes in how they perceive the world.
Yep.
And that, almost like the tide, it moves very slowly in and out, and you have to reach out and have that opportunity to take advantage of that opportunity to have speeches with people. Tell us about some of the speeches you had when you did your door-to-door.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's all just making it personal and trying just to make people realize, like, I'm just an average person who cares. I care about the community. I want to better it. I think, I can be a strong voice, and sometimes I'm not afraid to say what I want to say, and I sometimes have verbal diarrhea, so I'm not really kind of a pre-planned, I have it all figured out scheming.
It was appreciate that better.
Yeah, and I mean,
you're not talking from a canned script.
Yeah. And I think that was one thing that I frustratingly think I had over my opponent, which was that I kind of knew what the issues were. I was going door to door, I was doing it all summer, and I knew kind of what the beat of the community was, and it just wasn't enough. And maybe that was just name recognition, or people just not going all the way down the ballot, or, so there's, of course, you think about all the other things that it could have been, but no, the message was that people cared about education was the big top ticket, and of course the budget. No one likes Malloy.
I do, but go ahead.
They're easy to blame him for most of the budget issues, and I can see how that is possible, and that was something I had to carry. But the thing was,
quick reach out to Governor Malloy. You got one fan here still. Continue.
But no, the thing was that people just saw it as it was the Malloy administration and the Democrats that are in leadership, that they're pulling the strings for the whole show, and that Republicans really don't have a say, even though we know they do. That I would just be part of the problem, and then I wouldn't be able to speak to the leadership and really forcefully command. And I'm like, I think the second district is almost split. And I think
Yeah.
in that itself, I would have a unique voice. And if Democrats want to keep the seat, I would be better positioned to speak more and have my say. And even if I didn't, I would still, I worked in Congress. I know how it works, and I know it's not as easy as people think, and I'm the person to know that. I saw what worked and what didn't work in the United States Congress, and I think that's why I wanted to run, because I had seen this before, and I knew going up to Hartford, I had already built some relationships. I could have, worked across the aisle with Steve Harding and with other local Republicans to get some great things done. So I think people wanted to see compromise. They wanted, and we're not seeing that. I think we're at the point in politics where it's complete just disruption, and we saw that during Obama's years, where they just knew they weren't going to let anything go. Nothing was going to happen. It was just, let's burn the house down before we agree on one little thing to progress. And
they burned the house down, and not having any idea, as in the healthcare debate. They want to burn the house down without any blueprint to build the house again.
Yeah, and so that leaves. So now Democrats, are we supposed to follow and be the same obstructionist, or do we now help the Republicans progress a little bit, but now the Republicans take the credit for progress because we're agreeing and we're letting them go down with the process. So it's something Democrats have to deal with and realize and look at themselves. Do you just hold off for 2 years and
perhaps going forward, at least in the beginning, both.
Yeah.
You have to stand your ground. And if somebody wants to call it obstructionism, let them call it obstructionism. Let them call whatever they want to, but just remind them that, maybe you should have set a better example back in 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016, and not done exactly what you're critical of now.
Yep.
Continue.
Yeah, so but those were the messages that I received at the door, and it's continuing. I think people are still in Connecticut, although the rest of the country went red, and I think we're seeing Connecticut is turning a bit red. We're tied in the Senate chamber, and the numbers are getting closer and closer in the state house, and so we have the general for governor that's going to be coming up next year. So it's kind of, are we going to lose a little bit of that? Will Connecticut Democrats organize enough to push that back, or is it just how the pendulum is swinging in Connecticut, and hopefully not in the rest of the nation in 2018.
Henry, I see Henry at the next table is whispering something, and I can read lips a little bit, so I'm gonna. He asks, he wants me to ask you, in your door-to-door, did anyone make a reference, a religious or a racial reference, and ask you, are you Muslim? Are you black? Are you?
No, I didn't face any of that at the door. I think I knew I just had to kind of show up and joke with it. Hey, I'm the guy with the unique name or the different name. I grew up here in Bethel, graduated from Bethel High School, St. Mary's Church. I worked in Congress, and I want to make a difference in the town that I love. And that was kind of my first spiel before they could open their mouth. So
well, that's good because I know it might have crossed a lot of their minds if you hadn't addressed it before the subject came up, because I don't really look in very much on the blogs, the News Time blogs, and some of the other local rags. And I'm not going to mention any names, Paul and Proda, but I'm not going to mention any names. But a lot of people, Bill Hillman. I'm not going to mention any names, but a lot of folks would go on the
Bethel
on the blogs and hidden behind fake names. And fake identities. They said some pretty nasty stuff, not just about you, but they said some nasty stuff about a lot of people that have very high level of integrity and didn't need to be talked about. It should not have been talked about in the kind of terms that they were talked about.
Yeah, and so on Facebook, Bethel has this, it's a forum where anyone in town can ask, hey, where should I go for the best sushi in town? House of Yoshida. Or where should I go for these other things? Or, I noticed this, and they can talk about politics too. And it ended up being just, those usual trolls talking about me, my family, my mother, saying that I was in a car accident, that I almost killed a bunch of high school kids. I mean, none of it had truth, and they were trying to bait
all news to you, huh?
Yeah, right. So I was like, oh wow, I didn't know this. They were calling me the DC water boy and trying to demean my resume, which, I mean, they went on LinkedIn and tried to pull my resume apart. He didn't actually do this. He didn't do this, and I was like, so, and they were trying to get me to engage, but I mean, like,
they try to put,
and I never did.
They try to put good people on the defensive when in fact you need to be standing your ground, and if anything, on the offense, getting the word out of what your core values are, your beliefs, and specifically what you would do differently than the other candidate would do, which is the way campaigns should be run. Yeah,
and I mean, then it's like, I'm not going to let Facebook be the arena for a political campaign, and especially people that don't even know me and want to just spit nasty things. It's not even real questions about my policy or who I am. So I never engage in that, and I think some people were frustrated because they're like, how could you just let them talk about you or just say that? And I'm like, well, other people engaged and they know who I am and they spoke to it, but no, I think, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we stay high. So that's what I did, and I think people
take the high road.
Yeah, and people on the campaign trail did say that to me, that they appreciated I didn't engage or didn't spit back. I did keep it a very clean campaign, as hard as it was, right? But I mean, like I said, there's always gonna be those people trying to bring you down, and I mean, they were obviously threatened by me, and they should have been, because look how close it was. So.
And again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'll use initials: P.I., B.H., R.G., M.H., who obviously did not blog under those names, but because when people say venomous things, they generally hide behind pseudonyms, and they don't have the courage to say horrible things, because if they say those horrible things and people recognize who they are, then they'll know them, and they'll call them out and turn it around on them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's also to be a distraction for you to focus your time and be worried about what people are saying. But that's another thing for people that want to run for office. That's what you have to deal with. It's not easy. I was born in Queens, New York, and we moved here when I was in second grade. My family is very New York. We do not take crap from anyone, and so so it's hard though to sit there and take it, and you have to, because it's just, they want to get you there, and it's not going to happen now with me. So, and I think to another thing that I got a little hits from the other side during my campaign was that I spoke about hope.
Yep.
That I was hopeful, that I didn't want to speak to the people's fears in Connecticut, that it wasn't all doom and gloom, that I'm running for office because I think I can carry us out of this, that I believe that we can change things and I can return us to some glory, at least in the area. And people are like, you don't understand, doom and gloom is what we have to deal with, and how could you speak about hope and change as if it was a bad thing? So that was like one odd thing that the other side was trying to hit me on, that I was an optimistic young guy.
Very bizarre to be critical of somebody for being optimistic.
Yeah.
So going forward, what should future candidates, speak now to candidates that are thinking about running in 2018. What issues did you focus on, and what issues should they focus on?
Yeah, so I think to the candidates that are looking to run in 2018, it's important that you find an issue that you care about, that you get involved in local Democratic town committee meetings, and that if you really want to run for office, you find out what's the beat of the town, what does the town really care about? I mean, because you could think the environment's very important to Bethel, but that's more Reading, that gun issues are important to Danbury, but no, it's a bit of an issue in Newtown. And there's certain, especially when you're running I ran for a town for a district that had 4 towns, you have to juggle all of those ideas and those concerns. So it's more about, do you really care? And if you do, great, because that shows when you're running, when you're talking to people, when you're debating, that you really care. And I think the first step is go to your Democratic town committee, show up, and say, I want to dig in, I want to help, and start planting those seeds for meeting the right people, figuring out what the caucus is going to look like in 2018, and making sure that you can pull the numbers, because at the end of the day, it's not just as easy as signing up and saying, I want to make a change. You do have to play the political game. So, and I think that's what we all think. It might be easy, but it's not. And especially going up to Hartford too and wanting to change, that's not easy. Going to Congress is not easy to change things. So there's realities you have to face.
You become part of a very large group.
Yeah.
And the dynamics are
Yeah, it's not so simple.
not as simple as anybody might think. Now, I grew up an Eisenhower Republican, and where I'm going with this is that, of course, the party ran away from me as the years went on. The Republicans were the progressive party on social issues until 1965, when Lyndon Johnson signed the civil rights legislation, and all of a sudden the solid Democratic South turned on the Democratic Party, as Johnson predicted it would, and he knew it when he signed the bill, and he still signed it. But is there some value in going to Republican town committee meetings for those of us that are registered Republican or thinking about, or is there hope? You're the man of hope, and I'm the man of hope too. My hope is that people could actually go to the Republican town committee meetings and talk about issues and maybe change the dynamics of the Republican Party.
Well, I mean, I think that's a tough sell, but I mean, there's optimism in that, right? I mean, what's wrong with showing up to a Republican town committee and saying, "Hi, I'm an independent or Democrat, and there are some things I'm concerned about in town. How do you guys feel about these things?" And I mean, if they've chosen their platform and that's what they're speaking on, I mean, how do you change that? I mean, unless you become a Republican and change it from that. But
work from within the party.
Yeah. So, and I think in Connecticut, we're in a good state where some of the social issues aren't what they are down in Alabama. Me being gay was not an issue that I had I didn't have to carry the LGBT flag on the campaign trail. I didn't have to fight, or that wasn't, "Hi, I'm the gay candidate," as much as people wanted me to be. So
I've always felt the Republican Party in Connecticut is a more reasonable, more rational party, and the people within it are more reasonable and more rational. I have a lot of friends that are Republicans, and we're going to come back and do a second show and continue some of the issues we're talking about, and look forward to 2018, and reach out to some of you young folks that are watching, and some of you not so young folks, and get you to think about either running for office or helping someone running for office. Progressive Soup, David Stevenson, Raghib Allie-Brennan. We'll see you tomorrow, 12:30.